Welcome to the Washdown podcast, and this will be episode 148. And tonight's guest is Sheriff Will Akin. Yep, he's back for round two. Will is the sheriff of Clay County, Missouri, and we talk about mental health, leadership, and some great things that are going on with his department that he has implemented. So look, great episode. Hope you guys like it. Hope you enjoy it. Remember to like, subscribe on Spotify, YouTube. We are now on Rumble. So check us out. And here is the Washdown podcast, episode 148 with Sheriff Will Akin.
All crews stand by for emergency traffic. All crews stand by for emergency traffic.
That's the unit with the mayday. Go ahead with your traffic.
So basically,
I wish you had his personality.
what I'm
Said nobody ever.
He had a great personality. He was hilarious.
so what I'm understanding though is that Sheriff Will Akin has identified us as positive influences for the youth, right?
Absolutely.
For the Utes.
The Utes. Did you say Utes? What is a Ute?
Great. Now you've started them on early 90s freaking movies.
I'm going to have to go watch that movie.
That's a great movie.
I miss Vinny.
I do too.
Oh my God.
Marissa Tomei at her best right there, man.
Well, it's Ralph Macchio's best role.
I know,
okay.
I'm trying to argue it, but really, was he that good in The Karate Kid?
I mean,
Hey,
yes.
He was okay, but
How old were you, though, when Karate Kid came out?
Oh, man. Like 6, maybe? So what was that, 88?
No, the first one came out in like 85, 86.
Yeah, mid-'80s.
Yeah.
Well, I was 10 years old, and I was like, man, I want to be like him. Karate expert. Now we look back at it, it's like, whoa.
I liked it when
bad.
How I Met Your Mother talked about it and made Macchio the bad guy, and the actual Karate Kid was Johnny Lawrence. And then you start thinking about it, and I'm like, damn, they got a point.
Yeah.
You know, that does make sense for Will though, when he was like, "Oh, I want to be like that guy and beat people up," so he became a cop.
Hey, remember, man, when I was growing up, it was very much fuck the police, right? We didn't have a positive interaction with our local law enforcement.
Oh. Well, Will, thanks for coming back on the show.
Yeah, man, it's
Appreciate
awesome.
it. Yeah.
Glad to be here.
So what have you been up to, man?
You know, just trying to figure out how to be sheriff. Really. The previous sheriff, he told me, he's like, he goes, Will, I think you're ready. Hell, I thought I was ready. He said, but don't ever think you know everything. I'm like, psh, right? It's like a young man. I know everything. Well, he said, he goes, keep in mind that it usually takes about 3 years to get your feet underneath you before you start feeling like you know what you're doing. And I kid you not, right at the 3-year mark, which was the beginning of this year, or the end of last year, beginning of this year, I was like, man, I kind of feel like I know what I'm doing now. Know how to do it. Now, I'm not going to say I know everything about sheriffing. There's still a lot of things that I don't know. Every time someone brings something up, they're like, oh, hey, this statute or this federal case law. And I'm like, again, all right, what don't I know? What am I screwing up?
Oh, there's so many laws and
there are. And it's
court cases out there. And
bingo. It's court cases. It's case law. It's what happened in this district and in this, area. And it's like, it contradicts what happens over here. Then now someone has to rule on it. And it's like,
so I know at the federal level, it goes the whole country. What about if Kentucky does something? Does that affect what happens here?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. After Clay, was it Vescova versus Clay County? 2020. Yeah, from Clay County.
I don't remember that one.
So basically, the commissioners were signing contracts for us, but not giving us the money to pay our bills.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and we were defaulting. And so we took them to court, went all the way up to the Missouri Supreme Court. We were winning. And the Missouri Supreme Court saw it, and they were like, nope, remand it back down to the appellate court. and we won. So now there's case law with the former sheriff of Clay County. The reason why I bring that up is because I've had sheriffs from other states reach out and say, hey, what was the result of that? Give us the backstory, because they're going through something very similar. So now their attorneys can say, Vescova versus Clay County, this is what happened in Missouri. And now it's establishing precedent in other areas. So yeah, whenever something happens in any part of our country, it has a resonating effect, a rippling effect. It just goes across. And it affects all of us. That's why, when you think about our community, what is our community?
You talking about going urban, rural type community, or I'm trying to figure out where you're going with it.
Yeah. I mean, you're answering the question, right? So when I talk about community, how we perceive community or how we view community could be the city that I live in. It could be the county that I live in. It could be the region that I live in. But with social media and things happening across the globe, we're a global community now. So when something happens, like just today, someone said, talking about gun laws and stuff like that, and the statement was made, well, in countries with with gun laws that prevent people from having guns, they don't have these types of issues. And I'm like, oh my. I said, well, it doesn't stop people from mass killings, though. And if you look, I believe it was in Iceland or Norway, 60, 70 kids were killed. Well, that was with a gun. No, that was with an axe.
Yeah.
Or in France, the multiple mass stabbings.
Yes.
And in England.
Yes.
That's why England's now banning
knives.
Because I can't stab you with a fork.
But
or with a spoon, cousin. Come on, that's a movie. Come on.
Why would you stab me with a spoon?
Because it hurt more.
Yes.
But when people are in having their mind that they want to cause harm to others, there's always something you can use.
There's always a rock nearby.
Yeah.
At minimum.
I tell business owners and people who work in, anywhere where I'm talking about active shooter training, right? They say, well, should we bring a gun to work? Should we allow our employees to carry guns? And I'm like, man, there's a whole lot of things that you need to peel apart to answer that question. I said, but the best weapon in any building is a freaking fire extinguisher. You blast them in the face with the contents, they asphyxiate, they cover their face because of the startle reflex, and then you bash them over the head with the cylinder, right? But you don't just stop when you knock them down, because we all know that in scary movies, when they knock down, they're all high-fiving and chest bumping, who gets up? Yeah. And then they get killed, right? No, you have to do it until you have proof that they're not going to get up.
Yeah.
You got to stop the threat, right?
That's right.
It goes back to what you were kind of talking about before we started recording about there is evil in this world and evil people, and laws, people that obey laws are going to obey whatever because they're law-abiding citizens. Those aren't the people that we're talking about. We're talking about the people who, it doesn't matter how many laws you have, how many embargoes and all this stuff, and how hard you make it to get whatever, they're going to find a way around it. They're going to get what they think they need or what they want, because that's all they care about.
I know everybody's beat it to death, but drugs are the prime example. How long have we had a war on drugs? I mean, I remember Dare when I was a little kid, starting up and all that. We've been fighting drugs for my entire life, and even before that. And here we are, have all these laws and all this crap against drugs, and it's still a problem.
Yeah, but the sheriff's department...
I'm not knocking the sheriff's department.
They put a really nice Dare car in the car show the other day.
Not the Clay County Sheriff's Office. We don't have one.
No, it was Cass County. And I was like, oh, that's
Cass County.
Yeah, I was like, I didn't even know Dare was still around.
But, I think with Dare, to your point, Chris, Dare is a good tool to bring kids in and have an interaction with law enforcement to create that positive interaction.
Fully agree.
Yeah, but as far as we've been fighting the war on drugs since the 80s, mid-80s. We'll just say the mid-80s. What have we accomplished? We're fighting fentanyl and xylozylene now, and a new drug that's mixed with heroin called crystal or something like that. They always find new ways of doing things.
Oh yeah, or creating it, or however you want to look at it.
And the youth are high risk because they're living their best life.
Yeah,
and so, funny story. I have coffee with some guys. I'm going to tell them to watch this episode when it comes out because a lot of them are retired cops. And then we've got some, former city officials and some attorneys and stuff like that. But the guys who fought the war on drugs in the 90s, right? Late 80s, early 90s, throughout the 90s and into the early 2000s before they retired, man, they fought that on drug squads and they were undercover and they were doing all this stuff. Well, guess what they're doing now? Smoking weed, eating gummy bears, running weed.
But it's legal now.
But and they said, with the amount of time that they spent for years, probably over a decade, maybe in some cases a couple decades, only to do what they were fighting against. But now think about why they're doing it. It's not because they want to be drug addicts or druggies or anything like that. It's because there are things that help them deal with PTSD. Aging,
chronic pain.
Yeah. I mean, just the things that, they talk about. And I got to admit, man, when I retire, I think I'm going to try out some gummies. I'm just curious. I won't smoke it, but, I'm curious because, another example, the guys that I was with in Afghanistan, or the military guys that, they're dealing with a lot of stuff and they're not cops. So what are they doing? They're doing CBD. They're doing, gummies and stuff like that. And I can visibly see them going from suicidal ideations to living their best life.
Yeah.
And just enjoying life.
There's some good side effects to it and there's good uses for it. But with anything, it's moderation. And knowing what you're doing.
Yep.
And I think there's a huge difference between weed or marijuana and crack and cocaine and heroin and all the other stuff, PCP, and we deal with that a lot.
Mm-hmm.
There's a huge difference in those. I mean, it's like, you want a Tylenol or do you want an Oxycontin?
Yeah.
There's a huge difference in those and what you're using it for.
Mm-hmm. And then, on the topic of drugs, what comes with drugs? Money. What comes with drugs and money? Guns. Right? Yeah. What comes with drugs, money, and guns?
Crime.
Human trafficking, crime. I mean, it just continues to go on and on and on. And, I just attended a meeting this afternoon talking about the amount of seizures that we've conducted here in we'll just say the KC region, right? And all the drugs that are coming up, where do you think they're coming here from? We can trace all of it back to Mexico.
Yeah.
And they're just bringing it over the border like it's no big deal. Well, now you get into the conversation of securing our borders and stuff like that. I'm like, man, for fuck's sake, like, let's get away from, the social issues and just secure our borders so we can protect our people, our kids, our brothers and sisters and our families, our neighbors from the drugs and the guns and everything else that comes up from south of the border.
I don't think a lot of it comes from left side, right side. Blue versus red. You know what I mean? And I don't mean police versus fire on that one. Yeah. I'm talking political parties now.
Yeah.
And they make it such a political issue, and so many people can't get past the way they vote to see what the issue is. What the real issue is, and they make it so political that causes the rift and the problems that we have. Like right now you have Texas versus United States.
Yeah.
God bless Texas.
And I see where both sides are coming from. But I have to agree with the Texas side. Like, hey, we're dealing with it. You're not. And now with them like shipping the illegals to sanctuary cities, now New York's crying. It's like, well, yeah, we've been dealing with this for how long now? And you're okay when we pay for it. And you get a taste of your own medicine. And I think it helps open your eyes to the reality of what's really going on.
Well, it's like, so, and here's the thing. People may not, or maybe they do know. I don't know. This isn't just a United States problem, right? The whole migrant caravan thing. This is happening in Europe as well. Mm-hmm. And they're being led into Italy and Portugal and all of these places, right? Well, at one of the EU assembly meetings or whatever, what am I trying to say? The person who represents, I think, Poland, basically stood up.
Right.
Yeah, stood up and told them all they're idiots. He goes, we're not opening our borders. He goes, we don't have any of these problems because they're not coming in. He's like, we don't have the rapes, the murders, the drugs, the gun, the human trafficking, all this stuff because we're not letting them in. They can go elsewhere.
So, Will, let me ask you this. You are a law enforcement official, but you're also an elected official. it's easier maybe in law enforcement for your ideas, your methods to lean one way or the other. But how do you walk that line? Because the people you serve obviously are red or blue or pink. It doesn't matter. They all want one thing from you, and that's law enforcement and protection. How do you navigate that though?
So as an elected official, up until 2020, I had to carry a letter behind my name. But now in Clay County, Missouri, I'm actually nonpartisan. And that really opened up the door to really kind of explain to people that when I talk about my constituency, it's not just Republicans or Democrats anymore. Because, my catchphrase when I was running my campaign in 2020 was, when you call 911, my dispatchers don't answer. 911, what's your party affiliation?
Yeah.
We serve everyone. And so, in full disclosure, I didn't vote for the Constitution because I didn't trust the process. Now here we are 3 years later, and I am so glad that passed, because now we have 7 commissioners. We're nonpartisan, even though I have my political leanings, I have my opinions, sure. But when I navigate that, I stick with, this is law enforcement. I'm not putting my personal views on any social justice issue. It's just when we don't keep our communities safe, when we can't keep our communities safe, what happens? More crime comes up. Specifically in Clay County, we're known as the Johnson County, Kansas of Missouri. People look at Clay County like everyone who lives in Clay County is rich. I don't know about you guys.
Man, I wish I had some of that money.
Right. But
I must live in the wrong part of Clay County.
Same here.
But we literally get people from other areas of, I'll just say south of the river. I'm not just going to say specifically Jackson County because it goes beyond that. Mm-hmm. But it also goes into Kansas. So they come up into Clay County, they commit their thievery. Okay, they're not coming up here and committing violent crimes or anything like that. Right now we're limited to thievery and burglary and basically stealing cars, shoplifting and stuff like that. And then they drive back. Now I'll talk about Jackson County specifically. They go down there, they get caught. What happens? Well, Jackson County is historically known for letting people go, right? That doesn't happen in Clay County. So when we catch people, they're like, oh shit. Well, why do we get the aw shit? Well, because they know they're in Clay County and our prosecutors are going to prosecute. So when you don't have repercussions for committing crimes and being and holding people accountable, they're just going to keep coming in. And I don't know if that answered your question. I actually forgot what the question was.
It was kind of like what happened in New York the other day with the 2 cops getting their ass whipped.
Oh yeah.
And then a few hours later, you got video of these guys walking out smiling, give her you're like, come on, man.
Throwing the finger to the camera as they're walking away.
That has nothing to do with being a citizen or not. I want people to come here legally. I'm cool with that. But that's a problem when you literally no bail and can do that, and they're going to be gone.
Yeah.
So there's no repercussions for their actions.
Now, man, I am in full support of people chasing their dreams,
yes,
right? Being
100%.
the best version that you can possibly be. And the United States is a place where dreams come true, especially when you come from a third world country and you have nothing and you could work the worst job that we can think of and they're happy. Yep. They're like, oh my gosh, I have money. I can send money back to my family. I can, do things that I've never been able to do before. So I'm not saying that we need to completely shut down the border and just end people coming over, right? What I'm saying is we need to secure our border, but then also reform our immigration policy.
Yeah.
If people want to come over, let's put them through an abbreviated process to get them started. Find out, basically do a triple-I check, a criminal history, stuff like that to make sure that they're not criminals, that have been here and we've shipped off and they've come back. But if they don't, then give them a temporary visa or a number that they can use to pay taxes and stuff like that, and let them do the jobs that they're happy doing. But unfortunately, some of our entitled residents of the world, of the country would say that it was below them, and I don't want to work that job. So the reason why I'm really passionate about that is because my best friend, one of my best friends, his brother-in-law is Mexican, and he was going through the process as he should. He was actually married to my best friend's sister. They had kids. They lived in the States. He had a job. He missed a deadline that wasn't given to him, and they freaking deported him back to Mexico for 5 months. He didn't have any family over there because they were all over here. And so now he's like, what do I do? Now, fortunately, they had resources, so they could get him an apartment and, continue to work through the embassy and everything that they had to. But he was like basically a man with no country. Because he'd lived here for so long, he was married to an American, had American kids, but now all of a sudden he's living in Mexico because you're not American, but he's not Mexican because
he's been here so long.
He's been here so long. Oh my gosh. I was like, are you kidding me? We are in dire need of immigration reformation.
The process takes too long. It's expensive, and it doesn't work. And like you said, no communication. Which that's not a shocker when you talk about government agencies.
Check this out. So the Afghan Adjustment Act doesn't make the headlines, but basically we are at risk of sending back all the Afghan interpreters and people who helped the U.S. forces in Afghanistan because they're not extending their visa. Because they're not classifying them as refugees with permanent status. So
I was going to happen there.
Exactly. I lived there for 3 years. I know exactly what's going to happen. So now I've been brought in for that conversation, and I thought I was being brought in because Clay County is where most of the Afghan refugees are settling. And I'm thinking, okay, I'm the sheriff, and people know that I've been in Afghanistan and such. But when the conversation started taking place, I was like, I'm getting some weird vibes here. It wasn't because I was the sheriff. It was because I had lived experience and I was the sheriff. And so we started talking about this, and the people at the table, they were talking about how the process of vetting them takes too long and it's going to put them outside of the parameters that were already set. And I'm like, wait. Vetting them? They've already been here for 2+ years, the ones that are here in our area.
And we vetted them when they were assigned the job in the United States.
Right?
I was gonna say the same thing Moran just said.
And they got vetted before they got on the plane to get here.
Jeez.
These people have been vetted up and down what pencil neck piece of crap decided that bullshit?
So this is what I said.
Somebody's justifying their job.
In DC.
Right? In DC, yeah.
And so this is what I asked. I said, how long does it take to vet someone? And one of the nonprofit organizations there said, well, it usually takes between 18 and 36 months.
Why?
My head was about to explode. I said, what? I was like, I was in the middle of Afghanistan with a device barely bigger than my mobile device that my phone is, where I could take your thumbprint and take a retinal scan and know within 15 minutes of whether or not you were a terrorist. And you're telling me with all the resources that we have in the United States that it takes 18 to 36 months to vet someone when they've been working here, in our system? Like, I had 4 interpreters that I worked with. I worked with a lot more, but 4 that I really connected with. 3 are actually here in the United States. And they don't have to worry about the Afghan Adjustment Act. They came through other means because, probably because they had maybe resources or something. But one we've lost contact with, all of us. We've lost contact with, and she was probably killed. And so whenever I think about how we're doing things here in the comfort of our own home, and then not even taking into consideration what that would look like if we sent thousands of Afghans who helped us fight the Taliban, fight ISIS, fight, warlords and criminals. And
how many videos would be, how many videos they would put up on the internet of them, what they do to those people that helped us?
Yeah.
That'd be horrible. And of course, that makes us look even worse to the world. And
we don't follow through. We don't follow through on our promises.
No.
And it's funny because, not funny. When I was in Afghanistan, we were primarily operating or working with the Afghan National Police and like Ministry of Interior, which would be like our Department of Justice, I guess. Guess what the buildings were that we were in? They were buildings that the Russians built. They've done nothing to build their infrastructure since the 80s. when Russia was over there. Now, I'm not saying that, because I mean, we all think about Russia in the 80s and the Mujahideen and how we supported the Mujahideen to fight against the Russians because they invaded. And okay, be all that aside, the Russians were actually trying to help the Afghans just like what we were. Now, I will say the biggest difference, though, was we weren't raping and pillaging. Okay, and we weren't cutting down their resources and, just basically being bad guys, right? But we were still occupying what the Russians did to build infrastructure in Afghanistan. It just blows my mind. And here we are, after 20 years of being over there, we just abandoned that country.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's because we've gotten into the annoying habit, if you look back in our history, of, like you said, we don't follow through.
Yeah.
When's the last war we followed through on? World War II.
Yep.
That's it. Because that was, hey, we're going to go fight, and when we're done, you can go home.
Oh, that was a definitive statement, too.
Yeah.
And we are done, drop a bomb.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but we didn't do that in Korea. We didn't do it in Vietnam.
Those were conflicts. So it's not the same rules.
That's the Korean War now.
Yeah.
No, I fully agree. I'm
Yeah.
just saying I've heard that argument many times.
Yeah.
But
Conflict, war, what I mean?
But it's the thing of, we used to have fortitude and intestinal fortitude, we
Are you going to give
follow through.
speech from the newsroom now?
God dang it. Not now. But no, we used to do, we would follow through on stuff. And because we held the moral high ground. And now it's, I'm ashamed to say, but a lot of it's politics of, okay, well, this is not looking so great in optics, and the rest of the world's telling us maybe we shouldn't do this, and we're going to, blah, blah, blah. And we just even though what we're doing is right and it needs to be done, we got to go.
So, Will, let me ask you this. We started the show off by saying, what you been up to? How you doing? And you said, I'm still learning to be a sheriff. But how much of a politician are you still learning to be?
Well, every day is something new. I'm an elected official. There's a lot of politics involved in being an elected official. But what really makes it challenging is I have to represent my constituency in a couple of different ways. One is politically, because people still view me as a politician, which is not a term of endearment in my mind, right? Because there's so much negative connotation that comes with a politician. But then I also have to serve them in the capacity of law enforcement and keeping our community safe. Well, people argue you're only responsible for the unincorporated area of Clay County, which is 230 square miles and 23,000 people.
Okay, well then, cool. So that Clay County officer that pulled me over for speeding in Casey Mo, him and I are gonna have trouble. So listen here, sir. You're only responsible.
Pay your ticket.
But here's the thing, 20 years ago, 21 years ago, when I was getting into law enforcement, there were hundreds of applicants for a double-digit vacancy, right? We don't have that anymore. Look at Kansas City PD, for example, 400 vacancies, roughly. And how many applicants do they have? I mean, that's large scale, but now look at it from my perspective. I have roughly 14 vacancies, and I'm already 37 people short from a report that was conducted in 1999, an assessment. And I've got, 14, 15 people gone on vacation, sick leave, FMLA, military leave, admin leave. So now I'm basically 30 people short. Okay, for an agency my size of about 225,
that's significant.
Man, that's huge. And so that drives up all of our, overtime. And not even overtime, because that's just money. But let's think about the human aspect of it. Burnout rates go through the roof. Employees resort, especially in law enforcement, military, they resort to alcohol. They resort to, things that aren't conducive to a positive lifestyle. Their health goes out the window. They're always, angry. I mean, that's not fair to our employees. So, How's it going as sheriff? I mean, there's so much that
It
I
was
have
a
to
loaded
balance
question.
that, we're going to continue to do our job hands down. Oh, but that was the point I was going to make. So we have to work together. The municipalities have to work together. We have to work with the municipalities, everyone in Clay County, because we are all in the same boat. We're all hurting for people to fill the vacancies that we do have. So no longer the days where we can just say, you're not making it, or I don't like you, get out. We have to actually invest in our people. We actually have to share with them the fact that we value you as an employee of this organization, and we have to work together. So that's why the Clay County Sheriff's Office doesn't just have the unincorporated area. We're everywhere, pulling speeders over in KCMO and
Bullshit.
Yeah. Hey, if you need a witness against him, I got it. I saw it.
I saw it all. I did want to ask you, because I heard through the grapevine about some things you guys were doing up there, sabbaticals
yeah.
for officers. If you can talk about that,
Yeah,
if
I
you'd like
can.
to.
So we have criteria that we've kind of evaluated, and basically what we did for our employees. And I believe, and you caught me off guard, I should have looked at this. I just said, when they brought it to my attention, I was like, wow, that's a great idea. Let's do it. I didn't really.
Actually, I think if I remember correctly, that was discussed last time you were on here, the idea of it. So it's grown then since, hasn't it?
It's grown, and we've actually implemented it. But get this. Okay, so 3 weeks. I'll start off with what we do, and then I'll talk about the problems with it. So I will give you 3 weeks. You have to go see a therapist before your 3 weeks are up, or before they get there. Not to check you out or anything like that, but basically, or a counselor, it's basically to say, hey, look, this is how you have fun. This is how you turn it off, right? Because it's really hard to turn that switch off to go from being law enforcement and everything that we're dealing with, and is the whole purpose of the sabbatical, to being a regular citizen and just enjoying life as it is. So it's about an hour. I think we settled on an hour. If it extends beyond that, then hey, good, because that might open some doors for some other possibilities. But then the first 40 hours of the sabbatical is spent doing community service. And so the argument with me, because that was my idea, I was like, I'm not just going to give you free time if you're not going to, learn from it and grow from it. Well, we're already, serving our community. I was like, yeah, but under the color of law.
Yeah.
All I'm asking for you to do is go see the other side, the people that we are serving. Go serve 40 hours with a nonprofit organization that's, filling backpacks for kids at school with food, right? Or a food pantry, or, you tell me where you want to volunteer at. I'm not saying you have to do it with this organization or this organization. You tell me where you will get fulfillment from that volunteerism. And then 2 weeks, go and just be unplugged. Like, I don't even care what you do after that. Sounds like a great idea, right?
Is the whole thing, they're paid?
Yeah, I'm going to cover their pay. No one's taking it, though.
So why do you think they're not taking it right now? Is it the community service part? Is it the seeing the therapist part?
Or is
the
it
stigma that comes with that?
Is it you're short staffed and nobody wants to leave and stick everybody else with the work?
No, I can't afford it. Because the requirements are you have to turn your car keys in, your radio in. You can't work any off duty. And so a lot of our employees work off duty to help make ends meet because
we have Jeep problems and motorcycle problems and alcohol problems.
You said it, not me.
And tobacco problems. Yeah, okay.
But I never thought that would be an issue. But man, I think about when I first got into law enforcement, I was working 9 off-duty jobs because I bought the brand new truck and the big house and just living my life the way I thought I should live my life.
How many of your deputies have kids? And now you're talking sports, school issues, school lunches. That shit ain't cheap. I know when I paid my dad paid for my son's sports because I couldn't afford it.
Yeah.
That's how expensive it got. And now my brother's 3 years younger than I am. They just had a baby and he's got all those bills and, just bought a house in this market. So I know when it comes time in a couple of years for his son to play sports, I'm going to have no problem paying that bill. Because I'm at a point now where I can do that.
We're not even really talking about living outside of means. I don't see Clay County cars parked outside of mansions. Like, in all honesty,
You're right.
You know, we're okay. Maybe they have a nice new truck, but they're not out there taking vacations every other. They're not blowing it. They're living average lives, and they can't afford to.
Right. So now let's go back 3 years ago. Right. What our employees were being paid. Mm-hmm. So we're only 3 years into my administration, and the county commission has been wonderful to us. I mean, I think some salaries have increased by like 40%, if not higher in some regards, over just 3 years. That's huge. Now, this year our starting salary is $55,000 a year. We were supposed to be in the middle spectrum of all the law enforcement agencies that we would say are competitive with us, like within our market. What did Kansas City just do? Increase their starting salary to $65,000. My pipe dream for my employees was $63,000, and that was supposed to be kind of like a 3 to 5 year plan. And now they've just blown that out of the water. Yeah. Now, fortunately, it's Kansas City PD, and I don't think money's going to draw the amount of people that they think they're going to draw. And I'm not even going to say it's because of Kansas City PD. I think very highly of our police department with the city of Kansas City. It's everything else. It's the prosecutor's office. It's the problems with the community hating on the police, with different, various groups and such. That is not an environment I would ever subject myself to.
Yeah. Well, we've seen it, and we started seeing it, I think, in a big way right in the middle of COVID, whenever, all fire departments we want medics. And so then they started this bidding war. Everybody's, pay is going up. Well, and these people are they're department hopping. They're going to where they can get the most money and do the least amount of work, which is, I'm not hating on them for that. I mean, that's great. But at some point, the departments have to realize what's going on, and something has to change, because you're never going to be fully staffed if you continue to go down that road.
I don't want to get too far from the sabbatical question, but I'll just, kind of recap or cap, the conversation with increasing the starting salaries. Oh, and don't forget about everyone else, right? Because you have to prevent wage compression. Mm-hmm. So you have to adjust everyone's salaries. But you get to a point where it just flat out becomes unsustainable. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Other parts of the city or the county are going to suffer because you're trying to become attractive just based on dollars. And a lot of people don't realize, it's not just the dollars, it's what is the culture like? What is the environment like? What are the benefits like? Mm-hmm. And at the Clay County Sheriff's Office or Clay County, we have some awesome benefits. They're awesome. Our employees have 2 retirements, surf and loggers. How many places can you go to work for and you get 2 retirement systems with the options to invest, right? So we have great benefits. But you have to think about the bigger picture. What's your community like? Oh, applications. We get applicants. Sometimes they have 4 or 5 different police departments on their resume or on their application. What are they doing? Exactly what you said. Yeah. They're job hopping, looking for the easiest job to do and make the most money while doing it. So anyway, going back to the sabbatical, that's a part of the problem, because when we have been making such, peanuts, if you will, for so long that they found themselves going into working multiple off-duty jobs, and now they can't afford to take time off. I mean, we have employees who've maxed out their vacation bank, and they're losing vacation because they can't afford to go and do a vacation. And they're not living in mansions. Now, I will say some have motorcycles, and you're always going to have that group. And they really need to go to maybe some financial planning and learn a little bit more, because they do live outside their means. But for people to say, I can't do a sabbatical because I can't afford it. I'm a single vehicle family. And, I'm like, oh my gosh.
I mean, just look at how much prices for everything have increased in the past 3 to 5 years.
Holy smoke.
I mean, food prices are outrageous. Yeah. I mean, I don't know how many Dots Pretzels fans there are, but I remember whenever those were like $2.50 a bag. Now you go to Target, it's $8.
Look at Doritos.
Because you went to Target.
It's,
No,
dude,
even the grocery store, like you look at Doritos, they were
Yeah.
$3-4 a bag. It's $8.50, $9.
Oh my god.
It's like $12 for a 12-pack of Pepsi.
Yeah.
And Coke and all that. That's it's ridiculous.
Going back to Chris, when you were talking about the kids and stuff like that,
Mhm.
when you have, kids are expensive.
Oh yeah.
I think that's safe to say. Everyone can admit to that. As our kids started becoming of age, 18, yeah, we were getting pay raises.
Oh yeah. Huge pay raise. I was like, mine moved out at 18.
Oh man.
We tried to get him to stay. We're like, you're fucking up, kid. I'm telling you. And now he's 21. He's like, I fucked up.
Yeah.
Told you,
Yeah.
But it was a huge pay. We still gave him money.
Of
It's like my
course,
parents
of
did the same
course.
thing for us.
Yeah.
And I still do. But it's a huge difference in your bills
Oh
alone.
man, my oldest son, because I told all three boys, I said, I am not paying for your college. No one paid for mine. No one paid it for me, but I did what I had to do in order to get my education. And my oldest son, man, for whatever reason, he decided to go to a private Christian university in Indianapolis. And he's got the student loans to prove it, right? And then my middle son joined the Army. He's getting ready to graduate Columbia College after doing 3 years, one tour in Iraq. And he graduates this December. And then he'll go back into the military as an officer. They paid for everything. He has no student loan debt. My youngest son graduated from high school a year early to go to basic training and tech school for the Air National Guard. And now he's at Missouri S&T in the aerospace and mechanical engineering program. The state of Missouri.
That's a lot of big words right there.
Right. And I'll just say thanks, guys, because the Air National Guard's paying for his college.
nice.
Well, I think,
So
but he's earning it though.
Oh, absolutely.
It's not like it's given to you. You earn it.
Yeah.
And I got one of my degrees from a private Christian school, and it wasn't that expensive.
Man.
But it was up in Iowa. It was online too.
Well,
But it's the same education.
It was actually made up.
No. It was
It was the South Harmon Institute of Technology.
Yeah. So
yeah, it's a degree.
it's a degree. It says so. But it was through Waldorf University.
Oh yeah.
So, but doing it online, which I found it harder because you're working full time. You still got to get all your stuff done.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, you got your deadline still and all that. But it wasn't. There's so many options out there, school wise now. That there's really no excuse
Man,
if you want to go.
you're right. Right. I people, my employees, we have more employees now than we ever have that are, going back to school and completing their degrees and stuff like that. It's awesome. I
Mhm.
mean, we recognize every time someone graduates with an associate's degree or their bachelor's degree, and there's incentives that come with it, not financially, but opportunistic, right? As an example, whenever we have an employee who graduates with their bachelor's degree, they become eligible to attend the Missouri's Command College in Jeff City, which is like an 8 or 10 month program. They go down there once a month for a week, and they basically complete a master's program. And that's the reason why I will only let them go if they have a bachelor's degree, because, with tuition reimbursement and, getting executive level training, we pay for that. All they have to do is take 3 classes from the Lincoln University, 3 or 4 classes, something like that, and they get a master's degree. Well, it's just enough to where, yeah, they pay for it, they pass it, and then we reimburse them with our tuition reimbursement program. So they end up having a master's degree for free.
Yeah, it's huge,
Mhm.
and that's going to go into where we're going to head later with leadership and setting your people up for success. Because the more you can learn, then the more you're going to see when you're out in the field, and the better you're going to be as you start being the leader of people.
Absolutely. Yeah. People ask me what school they should go to and stuff. And I said, unless you,
School of Hard Knocks.
yeah, I say, unless you want to be like on the 90th floor in some skyscraper in New York City, who cares where you go to
Yeah.
school? If you get a degree, then that's what matters.
Do you guys have partnerships with schools?
No, not yet. I would love to, but the only university that we have or college is William Jewell, and they're still a little old school, I'd
Yeah.
say. I mean, great college. I know
So
a lot of people who've graduated there.
So like, I know a lot of departments have like Columbia Southern University. That's where I went first. I'm at my master's through there.
Nice.
So we have a partnership with them so you get a discount on your tuition, which makes it a lot easier to have to either pay for it out of your pocket or with student loans and paying it back. So you're not paying as much, and it's significant.
Yeah.
And I don't know how do you go about creating that partnership, but it's one of those things where you can kind of help push in that direction. And I can tell you CSU is set up for police, fire, and military. A lot of their classes go into what we do as a field.
Yeah. And that's great. The FOP had done it for us. So they had partnerships with schools, but then there was something with the grant process that they had to stop because it wasn't meeting some federal guidelines or something like that. So, and I don't fully understand it. So now we're looking for other universities and colleges that we can partner with, but you know, I will always be a proponent for higher education.
Oh yeah.
And these guys know it. And I don't know if you know that I dropped out of high school when I was 16 years old. And I eventually got my GED to join the Army because I had to get out of my neighborhood. It was just awful. But I'm also Dr. Will Akin today, right? So I've gone through years and years and years and military and GI Bill and, you know, to get to where I'm at today. But I've also taught at a university, and I'm not going to name who they are. It's a good university. But I have learned from the 9 years that I taught at the university that most institutions of higher education are very, very left-leaning. And whenever you have a left-leaning ideology, that doesn't align with first responders.
Yeah.
And so that's a problem. So, I mean, I don't know. I would love for perhaps somebody who works at a university that is all jacked about working with first responders, you know, watching this episode, because I'm open. I'm open to some ideas. Let's do it.
The school that I go to, it's a lot of firefighters, police officers, federal, and a lot of military are in there. And even though you can kind of tell when your professor is left-leaning, they really haven't said anything. Because like we do the live discussions and all that, or the live lectures, and you got to talk to. And you can tell there's a lot of right-leaning in there, and nobody's ever had an issue.
See, that's good, you know, because you can go to an educational setting and you can challenge. Let me rephrase that. You can learn the content, but I think what's missing from the classroom is being able to challenge your students to critically think about the content. Right? I can deliver the content, but I don't want to just be a talking head. I just don't want to be, no, this is the way it's going to be. Unless it's mathematics. I mean, there's really, like that's 2 + 2 is 4, right? You just can't change that. Well,
you know they're trying to do that, right?
Yeah,
like,
I saw on CNN that you know,
Common Core says it's 6.5.
Oh, right. You know, but you know, I don't think we challenge students enough to critically think about the content that is being delivered. But the environment is not set up to where you can freely think and voice your opinion about one thing or another because of political ideologies. And that's a massive obstacle in the classroom. So then you end up with students like how, I don't know, in the Columbia area of Missouri, thinking what they do. And, you know, oh, man.
Don't you think? So 2 parts. By taking the route that you took, right? And, you know, going back later in life to get all of your degrees and your doctorate and all of that stuff, you're able to look at it from a different lens and perspective and appreciate it more and filter out some of that stuff. But also the other part of that is it seems to me like education should be apolitical. And that it used to be that way. And then somewhere along the lines, opinions started to get brought in to things that should have been factual type stuff. It seems like we have science teachers who want to talk about philosophy more than science.
Yeah.
And history teachers who want to, you know, they're not telling you this is what happened in history. They're trying to put a spin on it.
Right. Yeah. You know, stay in your lane. I mean, if you're a mathematician, don't talk about politics, right? Unless there's a course about mathematical theory and the way politicians decide on a certain factor. Like, I mean, okay, I get that. But
Vegas has got odds on that.
Yeah. Stay in your lane. You know, I think, I mean, well, clearly first responders join the ranks in law enforcement, fire, EMS, military, because that's just the personality we have. And then, you know, when we retire or when we get out of that, where do we go? I have a lot of friends who are former military that became teachers who are not teachers anymore because of what is happening in not just higher education, but in high schools.
Oh, it goes further than that.
Oh man, it
Keep
does.
going down the
Keep
ladder.
going down, right? So now, like I know I'm so grateful that my kids are out of K through 12, right? Because there's just so many things that are happening that I don't agree with.
So
I'm not saying that there's not good teachers, right? They're
there
good
are.
teachers. It's just some, yeah.
I'm reading, just let me get this out, and then
Yeah, he hasn't talked enough.
You can have the floor. Right now I'm reading, are you familiar with Major General James Mukiyama? He was the first Asian American Major General, like ever, highest ranked for a long time, whatever, Vietnam veteran. He
It sounds familiar.
Yeah, he was a division leader or whatever under Hackworth in Vietnam. He was talking about that, and you just read his book. He is super patriotic. His, mother and father were immigrants and all of that stuff, and very appreciative of the American way of life and all of that. And he had a part in his book talking about how he remembers as a kid in school, and he grew up in Chicago, every morning, Pledge of Allegiance.
Mm-hmm.
And, he goes, I still raise the flag, every day at my house and all this. And is basically kind of like a call to action of, we need that back in schools. So I would really encourage teachers to start doing that again, and parents to start thinking about, hey, maybe you should push that.
Yeah, but see, that's where people will say, well, that's nationalism. Well, no, I agree. We should, because we should love our country. But, the teachers that want to do that are told not to do that because it's offending someone. And, when you start, worrying about feelings over what we should be doing as a country or as a classroom, or, however you want to break it down, that's where I feel like we make the situation even more dangerous, because at some point when you continue stripping things away from school that have made us the country that we are, we're going to turn into something that we are going to go, what the hell is this? Like, we won't even recognize this. And that's going to be our kids' future. And they're going to have to deal with it. But I'm optimistic about it, though, because so my doctorate it's a doctor of education, but it's in ethical leadership. And I did a lot of research for a couple of years on generational characteristics, but specifically in law enforcement. But the generational characteristics, that was fascinating to me, because when I first started my program, what kind of encouraged me, but like motivated me to, is because people were yelling in the halls. They'd be like, man, this is going to shit, and this is going to those fucking millennials, those damn millennials, and it was always the millennials.
We are a proud people.
And so I was like, what is it about the millennials that is causing us so many problems? Well, to summarize that piece, it's not the millennials. The problem in the workforce today is Generation X. It's not the millennials. But you can see the breakdown between millennials, and really you're talking about trailing edge millennials, leading edge post millennials. But now you have trailing edge post millennials and leading edge alpha. They're not the same as the problem generation. They're starting to see things through a different lens, and they're starting to question, why are you doing that? Diversity, we've made diversity into this thing, right? And diversity is you only have diversity if you have men, women, Black, Asian, Mexican, or Hispanic. Well, is that diversity? What if you have a room of nothing but white guys or white girls or black guys? Where's the diversity there? In my opinion, diversity is in the mind, right? But in these new generations, the younger generations, they don't think about diversity the way we have conjured it up to be. They only recognize the lack of diversity when diversity is not there. It's the lack of diversity. So they're not even paying attention to that. So when we act like, we're making this big deal out of diversity, they're going, it's not a big deal. That's just who we are and what we do. And so now they're starting to question everything that is happening today. But alpha generation didn't start until 2010, right? And we won't know fully what the generational characteristics are until after really it's the Pew Research Center when they say, okay, we're ending it here because now we have the beta generation. And now they're starting to look at that, but they're already, coming up with some ideas because of technology, right? But when enough research is conducted on post-millennials, we're going to see that there was a transition through a kind of like a bi-generational cohort into what is changing. But we're going to be old when that time comes. So the reason why I'm optimistic is the younger generations, they're not putting up with what is actually happening right now. And so it'll be really interesting to see how they deal with it in their future. But I think it's still important for us to do what we can possibly do to make that future look brighter for them. Because if we don't, it's going to be a big old trash can and they're going to have to deal with it.
So, Will, that brings me to my next question with you. We've
Dumpster fire.
We've talked about Will the sheriff. We've talked about Will the politician. How is Will the father and Will the husband been?
Man, I was asked one time, they're like, how do you balance work life and home life and stuff? And I said, well, I'm the wrong person to ask because I suck at it. And that was just last year.
And there's three of us right here I can think of.
Man. But my kids, they're all doing exceptionally well. And and they let me know, in their own way that they're really happy with how I was a part of their life when they were growing up. Me, I carry a lot of guilt because I wasn't there physically for many years of their teenage years and even younger. I mean, my youngest son was probably the luckiest. Like, he had most time with me. But I still carry that guilt. But it's reassuring when I see them doing the things that they're doing and they're thriving and they're kicking life's ass and they're just happy. Myself as a husband, man, I truly married my best friend, and I'm so freaking in love with her. Jennifer, man, she'll be watching this later, I'm sure, when it's posted. So, babe, I love you. You mean the world to me.
He's scoring brownie points. I'm
Emotional.
going to so call you out on this one.
It is the day after Valentine's Day.
Right?
Is there anything you want to apologize for while we're on here too?
For everything I don't know about that has upset you.
He's going to do something next week.
No, but guys, I tell you, Will as a husband, of course, for years, decades, I sucked at that too. I mean, my wife is actually my third wife, so I am no exception to, the challenges of marital problems and stuff like that for law enforcement and military. But I've grown, right? And so now the things that used to upset me, or the things that, the hills that I was willing to die on before are not hills that I'm willing to die on now.
Oh, yeah.
But I will say that my wife, so I started therapy about 3 years ago. And I was dealing with some things. And then I was good to go, right? So I'm good. And until I wasn't. And man, that shit came crashing down on me. Oh my gosh, it was so bad. That's another story, but just to kind of fast forward, I went back to my therapist and she goes, well, how come I didn't know about this? I was like, because I was managing it before. I was like, but I can't manage it now. Like, it's just spun out of control. Well, my wife saw a difference in me because I started going back to therapy, but now we're really dealing with the problems that I was kind of managing before and I didn't tell my therapist. Well, my wife was like, I want that too. Like, I want that peace of mind because my wife deals with things. And so she started seeing my therapist. And then it morphed into our therapist being a couples therapist. So she sees me, she sees my wife, and then she sees us together. Man, look, if you think therapy is not for you, go watch what happens. That therapist, as long as they're a good therapist, that person will open up doors that you tried like hell to keep closed. But once it's open, you're able to address it, and it just makes life so much easier. So I feel like Will as a husband, I'm doing pretty good now. You should invite my wife on the show and maybe ask her that question.
Write it down. Write it down now. Write it down right now.
I'll remember it.
No, you won't. You're talking about the guilt you felt with, work, basically being at work or gone all the time with the kids. So I felt that way. And I was kind of mad at my dad as a kid because he always was working on another job or whatever, trying to provide everything. And then as I got older, I understood. And now with my son being 21 and he's working all the time, and he's like, okay, I get it. Like it was like, I understand, because he was mad when he was a kid but I was always there I'd find someone to work for me for his sporting events or whatever as often as I could. But I think we all kind of have that feeling as kids. And then when we become adults, then you have that conversation with your dad or your mom. You're like, I get it. Yeah. And I'm sorry. And then now I'm apologizing to my dad.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm sorry. And my son's done the same for me. I was like, because we do what we got to do to provide for them and give them what they want.
Yeah.
Well, it's not even what they want; it's what they need.
Well, but also to add to that, what we think they want.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Or what we think they need.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean,
buying computers and shit.
Yeah. I mean, you guys know. I mean, my dad worked offshore for the whole time I was growing up, so he was gone. At least 2 weeks at a time, sometimes a month at a time.
Yeah.
So, like, he might miss a quarter of the basketball season or all of baseball, most of it being gone. So he was gone a lot. I understood, at least at the time, and now I understand more, but that was just, and maybe I'm just kind of weird that way, but that's just
see other people's parents there for every game, and then yours aren't because they're working, and you get that feeling of, hey, they don't care enough, especially with the schedules that a lot of us have.
Yeah, I think it was, and I don't ever remember having a specific conversation about it, but it was just the way that it was. And I didn't think twice about it. Like, because I knew he was doing what he had to do because that was his job. And if he didn't go to work, he didn't get paid, And if he didn't get paid, we weren't eating. So, I don't know. Maybe I'm weird like that. I
think you're an
You're the
exception,
special anomaly.
Rule, yeah.
We get it. Jeremy's special.
Well, no, but I mean, it's like, that's why whenever I joined the fire department, like working on Christmas or working on, my birthday or whatever, never really was a big deal to me because I was used to it. I was used to having Christmas in November or Thanksgiving in December or, whatever. We still celebrated stuff. It was just, we waited till he got home. So,
well, we've done that since I've been on with my son when he was a kid. And even now, we just do it around my schedule.
Yeah.
Which I hate. I'm like, you guys can go do what you want. I don't really care about those days. I'll just do it when, like, this year we had it planned for Christmas Eve and I ended up working. So I'm like,
Yeah.
I got home and there was gifts there and I opened them up by myself in the dark. It is what it is.
I think about Chris. That means you didn't have to like cook or do dishes. Or
do I seem like a guy who cooks and does dishes at home? Have you met my wife? Yes, you have. I don't do shit.
Okay, let me ask you why.
She won't let me.
My wife is the same exact way. She won't let me clean a toilet. I spent 8.5 years in the Army. I know how to clean a toilet.
Oh, yeah.
But it's not because of the cleanliness. She goes, that's my job. And I'm like, we're a team. You'll
just fuck it up.
Yeah.
You'll just fuck it up.
Yeah. And that's what I told her. I was like, are you saying that I don't know how to clean a toilet?
Yeah.
But yeah,
I don't
loading
do it
dishes.
her way.
Right?
Oh, yeah. If I load the dishwasher, she's right there. I'm like, why am I even trying? Now, I will do dishes, but normally I get yelled at.
When I won't get yelled at doing the dishes? If I do them by hand.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Even those I get yelled at.
See, and my wife is the exact opposite. If I don't put them in the dishwasher, if I wash them by the hand, she gets mad. It's like, they don't get clean that way. I said, they get a lot cleaner this way than they do that way.
But now I am expected to fix things, that I can. Like, we had to get a new water heater yesterday. She's like, well, you can't do it yourself. I'm like, fuck no. I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to put a water heater in. Yeah, I'm not sweating pipes, dude. I'm not.
You shouldn't have to sweat.
Yeah, you don't have to sweat pipes.
Yeah, that's how they when they built the house, they were all
shark bite.
Shark bite.
Oh, yeah.
Shark bite.
That's how we ran pipes in the basement when we finished it. That's what my brother did. We shark bited everything.
Yeah.
And they were great.
Whenever I had to replace that faucet upstairs, man, that was.
But the problem is now you buy a new water heater. What do you do with your old one?
That's why we will always have somebody come in.
Yeah, and I'm like, you know what? It's worth the $1,300. It was like $1,400 for the water heater and the installation.
Yeah.
I'm like,
And
yeah,
they
totally
take
worth
it out.
And they take it out and they
Yep.
clean up. I'm like, do it.
Yeah.
I took it them an hour. Would take me, 4 or 5? Because I'm a dumbass.
I've gotten to the point in my life where it's not, can I do it? Because I'm pretty handy around the house. I mean, my wife and I, we've been working on the house for the last 10 years, but I don't have the time to do it anymore.
Yeah.
And time
Or if you do
is
have the
money.
time, you don't have the energy.
Yeah. But time is money.
Yeah.
Right? And I'd rather spend it hanging out with my wife instead of working on the living room. So
We're about to put new floors in the living room and the kitchen.
Mhm.
And I've already put new floors in once in both of them. It's like, I'm not doing it. My back hurts, my knees hurt, my neck hurts, my shoulders start hurting. And it's going to take me a week to do at least one room because it takes me time to get it right. And these guys will come in and within a day and a half, it'll be done.
Man, so we just had our living room done and a few other odds and ends that we just never finalized, in the process of us upgrading our house. These guys came in and in 3 weeks, they accomplished what would have probably taken me about 6 or 7 months.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just like, babe, it's worth every penny.
Yeah. Master bathroom right here. We had a guy come in, took him 3 days.
Yeah.
It's new, taking out the old shower, putting a new one in, putting the glass door together that had to be custom made because of the opening, the floor, put the toilet in for us. I'm like, sweet.
Yeah.
And it's covered by a warranty where if anything leaks, they replace everything from there all the way down to the basement.
Dang.
I mean, that's a no-brainer to me.
Yeah.
So, Will, let me ask you this. We've covered now Will the politician, Will the sheriff, Will the husband and father. How is Will the leader doing?
Man, okay, that's a great question. And I'll admit, I struggle with that, right? We never say, I'm going to be a leader when I grow up. Being a leader is a challenge every day because even though I feel like I know what I'm doing and I've got a plan, a strategy and everything, it seems like every day there's something else that challenges my mindset. And then I think, oh my God, am I qualified to do this?
You've had that literally as recent as yesterday, haven't you?
Yeah, absolutely. So Will the leader, it's like, I think I beat myself up a lot because I have so many people that I think of. It's not just my family, right? It's my employees. It's the community. It's the inmates inside my jail, right? We have to take care of everyone. And then, issues come up and I'm just like, oh man, am I educated enough to do this? So I'm always questioning myself as a leader and my capabilities. But then I look back, I try to look back and I go, okay, look, Will, you are the man for the job. People do follow you because, they say you're a good guy. You're nice. You know what you're doing. So I have to constantly remind myself because I tell you what, the challenges that I experience every day, if I let that get to me, I think eventually I would slide into a hole and just be completely ineffective because then I'm questioning everything and then I couldn't make a decision or, tell everyone, hey, we need to go in this direction versus that direction. And so that's a struggle, and there's something called imposter syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And I'm learning more about it in therapy, and people who are high performers, who are CEOs and leaders within their own right, they deal with this. And it's not something, I was told, it's not something that's diagnosable. It's just something that comes and goes, but it depends on what it is. And I tell you, man, sometimes it smacks me across the face, and I'm just like, man, what do I do? Am I the right person for the job? But I try to stay grounded. Why am I doing what I'm doing? It's not for me. I always try to say, who am I doing this for? And I think as long as I have heart in it and I'm thinking that I'm doing the right thing, for as many people as I can do the right thing for, it's always guided me in the right direction, and then plus I have my faith, that keeps me grounded too.
I remember last time we had you on, we talked about we had talked about dating down at Northtown and the role you assumed there and how you carried yourself and how your department carried itself with that. But literally yesterday in our own city, we had something happen that has not happened here before with dozens of our citizens shot in a mass shooting and at least one dead. But you had your officers there. These are your constituents that are down there. How do you look your constituents? How do you look your officers in the face and even begin to tackle a situation like that?
Wow. I wish I had an answer for that. It's something that I've never been involved with. Danny was a different kind of scenario because he was the only one that was shot and killed in the line of duty. But for many of our residents, our community members being down there, because I was told there's like at least 1 million people, right? So I can only assume that a great deal of our people from Clay County were down there. Gosh, I don't even know. This is the first time that's ever happened. And I can look at other areas and we can look at after action reviews from critical incidents and we can see how they did it in their community. And we've learned lessons from it and stuff like that. But, it's still unfolding. It's still, the scene's not even clear yet. Right. And, for our deputies, for an example, all of our employees that were down there, we had 21 deputies, 2 managers, and a specialist. We're mandating them to do a debrief next week. Now, mandatory, but when you get there, it's voluntary, right? You still have to be there. Now, fortunately for our deputies, Kansas City responded to the incident. They left their posts and they just ran to it to stop the threat. What we did, at least in our areas of operation or of concern, where we were stationed at, we made sure that the paths were still clear for EMS, the paramedics, whoever needed to get down there, whatever resources were needed. So they weren't, in the battle, if you will, but they were still there, right? So when you start thinking about vicarious trauma, yeah, oh no, I'm fine. I was just a couple blocks down. Well, yeah, until you found out that night that 11 kids went to the hospital and 9 had been shot. It's like, okay, now we're starting to talk about something different. So any critical incident like that, we mandate our employees to go to a debrief. Now, whether you talk and whether you share your feelings, that's all voluntary because, that's just up to you. Maybe you're not ready to talk about it yet. But I know in the debriefs that I've been a part of, inevitably what happens is it just takes one person to open that door. And then other people are like, oh man, they're showing vulnerability. Well, I kind of feel like, and then next thing you know, you've got everyone talking, even the ones that said, oh, I'm fine, or I don't want to be here. I don't even understand why I'm here. Now they're talking. So that's why we always mandate it. But to participate, that's all voluntary.
Well, I'm curious too, from a leadership perspective, you're at the top. You aren't doing the frontline work as much, if at all. But what part of that too comes with empowering those beneath you? Because obviously you're at the top. The question then comes, well, what does the sheriff say? What does Will say? How is he leading us through this? But take us into your mindset too of empowering those beneath you to handle those roles as well.
We all have a part of this, right? From the deputy, from the civilian manager, through the ranks, because we're all leaders in our own right. But for me, being at the top, right, it's I think it's imperative for me to say, hey, look, yeah, you were involved in that. You might have been a couple blocks down the street, but don't think that it didn't affect you in some way. It's okay to be vulnerable. And this is something that I've learned recently, going through therapy. I attended the Battle Within last November, and I've learned a lot from there, and I continue to learn on how to be a leader during crisis. And the feelings that we feel, it's okay, because that's how you're processing it. It's not how I'm processing it. We all process crisis differently, but we can always say, but we can still see that, there's still some similarities. But then if you feel like you need to talk, don't be afraid to talk. I've opened up the door for everyone. After I returned from the Battle Within, I made a Facebook post and put on LinkedIn and Instagram. And I just said, hey, look, this is what I went through. This is what I learned. If you have any questions, hit me up. Don't be afraid. Just hit me up. I had a lot of people hit me up, even my own employees. And they came to me. I'll just share with one. He said, Will, he's law enforcement for 15 years. He said, 5 years ago, if you said that I'd be having this conversation with you right now, dealing with the things that I'm dealing with in my head, he goes, I would have said you were crazy. He goes, but here I am now with 15 years and I'm dealing with things in my head and I don't know what to do. And I was like, man, this is what has helped me. And I encourage you to do this. And now they're seeking help for themselves. For years in law enforcement, and really, I would say first responders. I mean, I think fire does it probably the best, definitely better than law enforcement. We've always tried to put up this image of I'm strong all the time. I can't be weak. Well, vulnerability doesn't mean weakness. I think that's fair to say that, look, just because I'm being vulnerable and I'm sharing, what's on my heart and stuff like that, doesn't mean I'm weak, because sometimes I really wish a motherfucker would, right? I know what I'm capable of doing. My resume is a snapshot of what I've done, but I can still be vulnerable. So going to the leadership aspect of it is, if someone like me can be vulnerable and be there for you, even though you don't think you need me there, then that kind of that shifts over to everyone seeing that. And I think that empowers them, right? They don't just have to suck it up and drive on, or get your shit together, pull yourself together, smack.
Yeah.
And they can be the best version that they can be, because we deal with enough stuff as it is.
Well, and that's how you change culture. You change it from that suck it up and just do your job, and you can have your feelings when you go home and all of that bullshit that we've all heard. Whenever you are out front and say, hey, like you did, this is what I did, this is what worked, and people see that, like, okay, well, maybe there's something to this. And then that's how culture is changed.
That's how we come up with sabbatical ideas, right? Trying to address issues with when it comes to mental health and wellness. We don't have a slate of candidates just waiting to become members of the Clay County Sheriff's Office. So we now have to actually invest in our employees. And it's not just investing in them. Hey, you're a valuable asset in our organization. You have to show them that they're a valuable asset to the organization. And that takes time. That takes, you have to build trust. You have to show vulnerability. So I think through that, and then just being available, be present, so when people do ask you, hey, I'm kind of dealing with this, this issue, and don't downplay it. Listen to hear and try not to listen to respond. Be there for them. Be present.
Man.
There's no way this guy is a sheriff because he's making sense. He's not a leader.
That's one of the biggest things, though, and one of the biggest problems that I see is there is a lot of listening to respond and not listening to hear. And just being present with somebody and being in the moment with them. It's like, oh, okay. Yeah. Oh, you're having a tough time? Cool, man. I got you. Great. Then what?
Yeah.
It's like, no, there are steps, there are, okay. Yeah. Now this person's told you they're having a tough time. Sit down, sit with a minute. And especially, all three of us, we've been through all of that stuff. And it's like, okay, you're having a tough time. I know somebody you can call, or I know this resource, or this is what worked for me, or this thing, and engage. Everybody hates the lip service thing.
Yeah.
It's the leader that's like, oh yeah, I have an open door policy. And then it's like, yeah, it's open this much. And if you stick your head in, I'm closing it real fast.
Yeah. Or if it's always open, but nobody's in the room.
There's that too.
Everybody's sick at pizza parties, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's be honest.
So, going to the open door policy, I have an open door policy. And that means if my door is open, you're welcome to come in, even if someone's in my office. Because if I'm just, just talking with someone in my office and it's not important, then the door stays open. Now, if it's closed, that I'm conducting business and, I'm on a phone call or something like that. But, it's such a shift, because when people walk by my office and they see someone in, they're like, oh, and they gotta turn away. And I usually see them and I go, come here. If my door's open, it's open. And that's taken a long time for people to understand. And since day one as sheriff, I've never closed my door at nighttime. My door was the only door that was open on the second floor. Now I have other commanders whose doors are open. It's like slowly spreading because there's nothing in my office that is so secret or private that if I end up losing it or something like that, then the sky is going to fall. The world's going to end. Now, there are things in there that have, personnel issues and stuff like that, but doesn't require lock and key. It's usually a sticky note to remind myself that I need to follow up with that person. And, someone says, well, what if they go in there and they go through your files that are in your desk? I'm like, well, then they're going to get fired, right? I mean, that's an integrity issue. But there's nothing in my office that I'm worried about. So now I have a couple of other commanders who are leaving their doors open. That's a culture shift. But when I say I have an open door policy, it is truly an open door policy. You're not going to interfere, unless my door's closed. I have employees who send me Snapchat DMs. I have employees who hit me up on Instagram, Facebook. I have so many community members hit me up on Facebook, on Messenger. Just, hey, Sheriff, I know you're a busy guy, and I know you probably won't have time to really answer this, or I hate to bother you. And then I respond like the first chance I get. Sometimes it's like within a minute because I'm available. Sometimes it's 2 days. But then they go, I can't believe you actually answered me. I'm like, man, that's because I'm accessible. And I don't make myself accessible because I'm a politician. I make myself accessible because you just might need me, and I might be the person who can help you.
See, and I think that's something that, by and large, a lot of people that are in your position, or let's say the mayor or the director of a big fire department or whatever, in a very high position, they tend to insulate themselves from those type of interactions with the public. And I get the reasoning why is because, okay, well, I've got this department to run and I'm busy and this and that, and I don't have time to do that. I understand, whatever. But to me, that sets apart managers and leaders. And having a genuine care for the public that you serve, because you do serve the public, it sets people apart whenever they do that kind of stuff.
I don't know about you guys, but I've never heard anyone in a true leadership position who said, man, this is easy. Because being a leader is not easy. Much to my wife's dismay, I get phone calls when we're trying to have a dinner, a meal at a restaurant, or countless people come up and they're like, hey, Sheriff, it's good to see you. And then by the time people are done saying hi to me, my food is cold and I got to get it to, a to-go box,
Man, cold food is the best.
Especially, you microwave it and eat it the next morning.
It'll be all right.
But that's, if you're willing to step up and take that position, it better be for the right reasons and not for a paycheck, because it is not easy. I took it because I knew I could be there for others. I didn't take it. Well, I'll just share this with you. And I think we actually talked about this last time. The week leading up to the election in 2020, my wife and I had a big blow up fight. She was like, I don't understand why you're doing this. You're putting too much time into this. You're not there for the kids and me. And well, she might have taken a little far, and I may have escalated it, or, I don't know. But allegedly. But we didn't talk.
Replay flag.
Right. Throw the red flag. We didn't talk for like 3 or 4 days after that, leading up to the election. And then I won. But what I ended up telling her was, it's not for me. And she goes, what do you mean it's not for you? She goes, who cares if you win your election? You're so marketable with your background, your experience, your education. And I go, but if I don't win, then what's going to happen to the 230 employees that we have, or 225 at the time? What's going to happen to them? If I don't win, how is the Clay County Sheriff's Office going to be able to serve the community how I feel like they should serve the community, how law enforcement should serve the community? And then when she started thinking about that, she's like, we talked about it later, not then, because neither one of us was thinking logically, using the front brain. And then, finally she understood why. And yeah, I know I'm marketable, but man, I love being the sheriff. Even with all the challenges, it has definitely put me in a position where I can lead right now, but it's not easy. I mean, there's things right now on my to-do list, on my sticky notes, where I'm just like, oh man, I don't want to deal with this because I'm going to have to hurt feelings. I'm going to have to be stern. I'm going to have to be, I'm going to have to put people in their place, and kind of check them a little bit and stuff like that. But I'm somebody who likes to be there for others and make people happy. I don't like making people sad or checking them,
Yeah. Well, but
it's
that's
never
the
fun.
thing. Yeah, that's the thing with leadership is like, and I understand why people get bent out of shape about it. Is like, oh, well, you're coming down on me. Well, I kind of have to. That's my job because you did some really dumb stuff, and you know better than that.
Yeah.
Why do
You
I feel
know,
like I'm being targeted here?
I wasn't talking about you specifically.
Yes, he was.
But no, it's not that, personally I dislike you or anything like it's like, no, what you're doing, like for me personally, right? I'm a district safety officer. So my job is to make sure everybody's safe.
Yeah.
And doing
Will,
what
he's the fun police of the district. in case you didn't
I
know.
have a t-shirt actually.
I have that
Yeah.
T-shirt.
Yeah. But whenever I have to say, hey, you can't do that. We have to do it this way, or you have to wear that piece of equipment, or whatever the case may be. And people get bent out of shape about it. And then other captains will get bent out of shape because I'm talking to their firefighter. And it's like, well, here's the thing. If you would have policed your firefighter, I wouldn't have had to say anything. So that's just your ego talking. But that's my job. And I take it personal. And I've talked to several battalion chiefs who I respect immensely about it. And like, we have a fire and somebody gets hurt. I take it personal
Yeah.
because that's my job is to make sure that everybody stays safe. Now, I realize that that's cuckoo land because what we do is extremely dangerous and people are going to get hurt.
What did Nelson call that? Was it rainbow butterfly fart, rainbow fairy fart land?
Yeah.
It's cotton candy rainbow land, man.
I made up my own. That's better than Jeremy's. It had fart in the name.
We'll get him a safety officer of rainbow cotton candy fairy fart land.
There you go.
So anyway, but yeah, nobody likes to do that. Or if you do like to do that, you're just a jerk. But it's your job. And
Well-
that's part of being a leader is making sure that everybody's doing what they're supposed to
It's
be
not
doing.
personal.
Yeah.
No, it's not. We're dealing with the issue right now of defensive tactics.
Jiu-jitsu.
I'm all about jujitsu,
Yeah.
right? But here's the thing. We have this arbitrary number that no one can tell me where it came from. We give 8 hours of defensive tactics training every year. That's supposed to make us an expert in defensive tactics. Okay.
By what standard? Because if you look at anything, it's 1,000 hours just to be proficient
In all fairness, it's
at
7
anything.
It's 7 hours and 59 more minutes than I had last year.
But look at any book that tells you that to be proficient in anything, it takes you 1,000 hours.
Yeah.
Or 10,000 hours, or what? I can't remember the exact number, but that's just to be okay at it.
Yeah.
That's not to be an expert. And in your line of work, I want people who are experts.
But here, let's take it one step further. Okay, so we do 8 hours and we take away all these resources to go train for 8 hours and add to the fact that there are people who don't want to do that because it hurts, and I don't want to be be in a painful situation. And, I've been doing karate for years. I don't need to do whatever.
If you've been doing karate for years, you definitely need it.
But what happens when you injure your employees and you send 3 of them to the hospital with dislocated shoulders or elbows and now they can't go back to work, right?
So my suggestion for that would be find a different trainer.
No, they're internal trainers. But here's the thing, right? So our trainers are good. It's just when they go and work with their partner, we tell them, okay, 10%, go with the motion, feel good. You said it, ego. Ego pops in. Next thing you know, they're doing 150%. And that's when somebody's shoulder gets, knocked out. But what do we expect? We don't train. We don't train enough to know what 10% is versus 50% and stuff like that.
So now if I dislocate somebody's shoulder, does that mean the threat's over? So isn't that proficient training.
Would you be interested in having Jeremy and Chris and I in defensive training class?
Hey man, I've had a dislocated shoulder. It sucks.
Yeah.
Coming out was fine. Going in,
I've got some. We've got some problems we still need to resolve on this show. So if we could be guests in that class, that would be great.
So part of the conversation that we're having is, do we continue doing it just because that's the way we've always done it, and that's this standard that has been arbitrarily set, or we take reality into the equation. For example, every fight that I have been in law enforcement has ended up on the ground. I've got a martial arts background, kickboxing and Muay Thai and some Taekwondo and close quarter type stuff, but they all have ended up on the ground. I don't know jack about grappling. I've never wrestled. I was able to manage to do what I needed to do, but how come we're not training jiu-jitsu? And that's the trend in the country. We're starting to move towards ground fighting techniques and not ground pounding their face in when they get on the ground. No, it's to control them. Because oftentimes people are fighting you because they're passively aggressively trying to get away from you. So you control them and wait until somebody comes in, your backup or whatever. If you have somebody in an arm bar and you've got them all twisted up and they can't move, well, sit there. Be patient.
Yeah.
Wait for another minute, because a minute can feel like a long time. But if you understand how your body reacts to stress like that and you've got them controlled, you're going to be in a way better situation. So that's kind of the direction that we're going. And we're looking at some different, the Gracie techniques and stuff like that. I mean, we've got some really good jiu-jitsu instructors here in Clay County. And I would really like to bring them in and have them be our instructors as opposed to our people being the instructors. Because again, it goes back to the whole mom and dad thing. Just because I'm mom or dad, I tell my kids, hey, you shouldn't do that. They're like, you don't know what you're talking about. But if Chris tells them, they're like, oh, hey, Dad, Chris said I shouldn't be doing this.
Yeah.
He's right. So, that's kind of what we're looking at. And, that's just one example of kind of the challenges that we're working against.
Yeah. Well, and I know that, standards and laws and stuff kind of hamstring you guys on a lot of stuff that you're able to do, even with the holds and stuff. And it's uneducated people making decisions about that stuff. And I mean, that needs to change, obviously.
Get this, something that we recently discovered. So how many hours of taser training should we get? 2 hours.
That's it.
2 hours. I mean, you just point and pull, right? Pull the trigger and prods come out. And
seems pretty simple. I can go buy one at the store.
But we have to train for 2 hours because that's what the company says we should train. So now we're letting private corporations dictate how many training hours we get with a certain device or tool. Same thing with ASP, anything that we carry around our waist or in our vest. Private corporations are dictating what law enforcement does to be trained. Okay, I don't know about you guys. That doesn't sit well with me. But if I don't do 2 hours, that same private corporation will come out against me and testify if we have a critical incident.
So I don't think 2 hours is enough.
No, it's not. And so actually what we're doing is we're kind of getting away from the old training standard of you do 2 hours of baton training, you do 2 hours of OC spray, or you get OC sprayed, like all these arbitrary numbers that are being placed instead of doing them in silos. What we're doing is we're creating training plans that incorporate a scenario where you utilize everything or simulated everything. But first and foremost, how about talking with people? How about trying to de-escalate the situation as opposed to having to go hands-on or spraying them or tasing them or beating them with a baton? Me personally, I don't carry a baton anymore because they're really ineffective and they leave a lot of bruises and it's terrible PR. Oh man.
I want to make so many bad jokes right now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, obviously de-escalation is the ultimate goal, right?
Yeah.
I mean, but let's just face the facts of the world. That's only going to work with people who want to be de-escalated.
Mm-hmm.
And whenever you have people that are high on drugs or they have mental problems or things like that, you guys are eventually going to have to go hands on.
Yeah.
And you need to be capable of doing that.
Yep.
It's the sovereign citizens, man. Ugh.
Right. I'm just a traveler.
That's a hands-on immediately.
Well,
I watched one of the videos. Isn't that a Florida? The guy goes up and he's asking for license. I'm a sovereign citizen. He's like, give me their unit. I just doesn't say a word, and then they yank him out. He's like, I'm not even going to deal with this.
yeah, fortunately, we don't deal with a whole lot of sovereign citizens. But then again, we're the sheriff's office, and they actually respect the sheriff's office because the sheriff is an elected official and not an appointed person, by whatever government they don't recognize. So I think that makes it a little easier for us, but we get the ones that crack the window and they give us like 20 pages of some manifesto, and it's like, no, that doesn't work.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah. There's no way. I couldn't do it.
I love this job though. I really do. I've had some my ups and downs, but almost 21 years of doing this and where I'm at today, I absolutely love it. I'm able to do things, especially as sheriff. I'm able to do things that I'm able to do whatever I want to do.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's for the good, we're setting off in the right direction. But, growing up in law enforcement, in my years of law enforcement, I've always heard people say, well, we can't do that right now because it's going to cost money, but we're going to wait for such and such agency to do it first. And then whatever happens over there, then we'll employ it. I'm like, but that agency is like 20 times bigger than we are. We don't care about the New York Police Department. We care about the NYPD. But I don't care what tool they're implementing over there for 40,000 police officers or whatever they have compared to what I'm going to employ with 24 deputies. If it works for us, why can't we be the ones that spearhead it?
Because that makes too much damn sense. Well,
I want to be the tip of the spear when it comes to, making change. And, teaching at the command college on Monday. So I teach law enforcement leadership and effective management at the command college. And the second day before we go into case studies and scenarios, I talk about what I wrote in my dissertation and basically talking about how law enforcement leadership is based off of an antiquated system. There were a lot of implications from that because basically what I was saying was all you old cops, you're irrelevant today because you're holding us back. We can't progress if you want to hold on to the days of the 90s back when we could crush people's skulls and choke them out and do all this stuff. Societally, that stuff's not acceptable anymore. We still have to do our job, but there are different ways to do it. And so when we start talking about that, there are students in the class, they're saying, well, I don't agree with that because we do it this way. And I go, oh, okay, so what you mean to say is you're stuck in the past, just like you are complaining about your bosses. And, they're like, oh, damn. And I go, yeah. So I said, really what I was trying to do with that abstract was to say, we have to push out of that old school way of thinking. We have to risk being progressive. And I hate that word progressive.
That's a dangerous word.
It is. It is. But the fact of the matter is we need to progress. We need to make law enforcement progress to be ahead of what is societally acceptable and set the standard ourselves instead of waiting for the court of public opinion to set that standard for us. Or worse yet, the Supreme Court of Missouri, the United States, or district court, or whoever. We need to be ahead of it. But what are we doing to be ahead of it? We certainly ain't doing it if we're stuck in yesteryear.
Yeah, that's leadership and culture change. But it's the same way in the fire service, though. We do this because we've always done this. Well, why don't we try it this way? Well, because we've always done it this way, so let's just keep doing it this way. But this way could be better.
Check this out. When I restructured my organization, I had a long-time employee pop in, and he goes, he's laughing. He goes, "We already tried that. It ain't gonna work." Ha ha ha! And then walks out. Here we are a year and a half later, and it's not only working, it's fucking working.
So here's the thing, and here's what I think about is sometimes these programs or some things get tried per se, and either they don't have the backing, they weren't fully formed, or the person that was pushing it wasn't really invested in it and didn't get the buy-in. And that's what has to happen for anything to be successful.
Absolutely. Guess what I started? Well, you wouldn't know, but 3 guesses. So every quarter I meet with my sergeants, all of my sergeants, and we have, I think right now about 32, maybe 33. Oh, actually, no, I think we have 34 now. We just promoted one. But every quarter I meet with them, and what I'm going to do in this next one, which is next week, I have topics on my sticky note on my desk that I'm going to present to them and then have them find the solution. At no time in our history have we ever gotten all of our sergeants, the ones who ensure the work is being done in our organization, together for me to say, hey, look, this is on my mind. I've heard it from many of you, but I don't know what the solution is. I have an idea of what I want to do, but I don't know if it's going to work. So guess what? Break out into working groups. Here's your topic. Go bring me some solutions. And then let them do it. And I have done that for other things. I've created committees and they've come back. Well, guess what? If it's their idea, I automatically have buy-in because they came up with it. It wasn't just me. Now, I might tweak it or something like that, based off of information that I know that they didn't have at the time. But I still tell them, I'm like, hey, look, this isn't going to work like this. But if we change it like this, it could work. You still good with it? Oh, absolutely. Now I've got buy-in.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But you hit the nail on the head. If you don't have buy-in, it's not going to work. We were just audited by NIJO. So we're going through the National Institute of Jail Operations accreditation process. And the auditors, I met with them on this past Saturday. And they were telling us, they were just debriefing us. And one of the auditors says, man, he goes, I'm actually really impressed with your agency. And I was like, oh, okay, because I'm thinking we're not going to pass, or not necessarily pass, but we're going to get dinged on a lot of things. And he said, he goes, one of the things that I'm really impressed with is you have buy-in from your organization, from all the employees that we talked with. They're bought into this. They're like, what did you do? And I was like, I was transparent. I told them this is the reason why I want to do this. And, and I explained to them, and every time an issue would come up, that there was opposition, I'd be like, no, I'm not just going to shrug it off. I addressed it with that person who brought it up because, I'm not going to say, well, your complaint is dumb. I would never say that. I'm going to address it. But then I take that tidbit of information and I go to my informal leaders and I plant seeds. Because we all know that there are informal leaders out there, and then they start having conversations, and they're like, "Oh yeah, Sheriff, he already told me that this is the reason, this is the intent of it," and now we have buy-in. But I tell you, it's so
amazing what a little bit of transparency does for you.
Well, see, and that's
being open and honest and communicating.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the important part of knowing what's going on at I don't like to use ground level, but what your people are dealing with and the things that are going to make their life easier, and not just coming down with, oh, well, today we're going to wear purple uniforms because of this. No, stop. The good idea fairy needs to go away. Like the communication. Oh man, whenever it flows both directions. And yeah,
check this out. So I have a lot of great ideas, right? But I'm the guy who you do not want in a patrol car out there answering calls for service or pulling cars over. I wouldn't even know what to do. Like, I have a general idea of what to do, but I've been separated from the actual work that I would literally have to ride with an FTO. Like, no misunderstanding that. Like, I understand that about myself. In fact,
but a lot of people in your position don't understand that.
Right. We were actually talking a few weeks back, and we were talking about, hey, man, when was the last time you put handcuffs on someone? And I started, holy shit, like 8 years ago. So, I have these great ideas, But look at how long it's been since I've actually done the job. I think it's imperative, critical, that I get feedback from the people who are actually doing the job, whether it be through the sergeants or just walking around saying, hey, I've got this crazy idea. The buzzword in the sheriff's office is radical, right? You come to me with a radical idea, I'm going to stop what I'm doing. I'm going to invite you into my office, have a seat, share with me your radical idea. Because usually they're really amazing ideas, but it's outside of the norm. So it's radical. But you walk around, you ask people for their opinion, and you listen to hear instead of listen to respond because, well, you just hurt my feelings. I need to be on the defense now. No, just listen to what they have to say. And then you take that and you grow it. And then when, like for me, every chance that I get to recognize someone's input or someone's part in an idea that has come now to fruition, James, good job, man. Couldn't have done it without you. I shine the spotlight on them. How does that make people feel?
10 feet tall and
I
bulletproof.
get super
valuable.
awkward. I hate getting recognized. I'm like, great job. Like,
Outwardly you do, but you know you love it.
oh no!
You love the spotlight. You cannot tell anybody here any different.
Just look at your Facebook page.
Yeah.
When people like sing me happy birthday, I literally like want to crawl in a hole. I hate it. I really do.
You know, we all have a job to do and we do it to the best of our ability. And, we have an employee right now who we just learned was serving papers at a house. And the person that he was serving papers on was not there. But it was a lady who was watching the house because it's kind of convoluted, but nonetheless, the lady who was there, it was on one of those big snow days, right? Or maybe the day after. She was like, hey, deputy, do you have anyone that you know that can shovel the driveway? Because she was an elderly lady. And he goes, oh, yeah, I'll take care of it. And I'll call you back and let you know who I found. Well, she doesn't hear back from him. She walks out to into the garage, lifts the garage door open to go to her doctor appointment, and the freaking driveway is spotless. He went back himself and did it. Now, he's also not the one that would appreciate me pointing that out. But I always look for the opportunity to recognize people in public because of the things that they do. I'm sure with him, he's probably done so many things that we don't even know because he doesn't tell us. People don't call us. And that's the kind of stuff that I always try to, let them know, hey, I value you. You're going up well above and beyond what my expectations are, let alone the public's expectations. We're going to highlight that. These are feel-good stories that we don't do enough of in public service, right? Because, people are usually bashing us because of something bad that's happened. But how many times do we ever, put on social media or the news covers something good that we did? That goes a long way. And it goes a long way with the person that you're recognizing too, especially their families.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, and that's one of the biggest gripes in fire service and, police services. We're not recognized for what we do. I mean, yeah, it's our job. We do that, but a lot of us, we go above and beyond. We go the extra mile. We do the extra thing. And it's nothing.
Yeah.
Get your paycheck and go home. Or even whenever it is just our job, we had this code save and this code save and this code save, and we did a good job on this house fire and all this stuff. And it's like nothing.
Man, I tell you, and it's unfortunate, but I did have a personal interaction with one of the Kansas City Fire Department's stations responding to a 911 call that I made. There was a whole bunch of us that were going to help somebody move out of their apartment into another apartment, but she was unresponsive and she wasn't answering her door. And we were literally getting ready to kick the door in when she answered. But we had already called for fire to come out to check her out because she's got some issues and stuff like that. Man, I mean, I was so impressed with how they just came in. They're like, hey, what do you got? And I told, the captain, and he went in, the paramedics went in, checked everything out. They were cool. And they were like, okay, we're done. And they left. And I was just like, smooth as butter. I called James up. I'm like, dude, help me find out who those guys were, guys and gals. And I wrote a letter thanking them for what they did. That impressed me and it impressed the 20 other people, cops, all cops, there that day because they went in and they treated somebody who we loved. And so I was like, I am not missing out on this opportunity. So I wrote a letter and I sent it off to the battalion chief and a couple of, and by the time I finally got it out, I think there'd been some personnel changes. So I just made sure that everyone got it.
See, but it's
got to recognize.
Yeah. And it's things like that, and some people are better about doing it, some not, I'm not going to say nobody does it, but yeah, that's one of the biggest gripes that I keep hearing from, all over. And I see it on, Instagram with the pages that we follow and interact with and stuff. And it's like, yeah, these are organizational stressors and not being, recognized for what we do. And, like Chris said earlier, people are tired of pizza parties. It's like, let's have some genuine,
I'm not tired of pizza parties, though.
Obviously.
Dang.
But
that's why we never mind.
Yeah, it's the genuine interaction and the yes, you are valuable to the team and the mission. Now, look, we all know, yes. Well, in the past, it would have been like you're a cog in the wheel. If you retire today, we're going to fill your seat tomorrow. But like you said, it's not necessarily like that anymore.
No,
it's people aren't really coming into these lines of work, into public service the way that they used to. Some people are. Some places are. It's better than others. But as a whole, from what I'm seeing across the country, everybody's hurting for people.
Yep.
I mean, on the PD side and the fire side.
Yeah.
And whenever I say fire side, everybody don't get up in arms. I mean EMS and all that stuff too. It's all one umbrella. We're all the same team. So, but that's what I'm seeing. So now showing appreciation to the people that are out there doing the job from a leadership perspective and from the upper, management, if you want to call it, it's important.
Jeremy, how many times too we kind of missed the ball on that? I'm sure if you ask we all kind of recognize it. Sometimes just the appreciation for the job is just the reduction of what it does to us, especially in this line of work. We don't necessarily always need the pizza party or need the money. Sometimes we just need the ability to be able to go home after a shift and feel like a normal human.
That's why I give complete autonomy to my captains and even down to my sergeants if they really feel they need to exercise this. But if they see an employee who's just having a bad day, rather than being pissed off at them for not being productive or for having a bad attitude, they can go up to them and say, hey, look, it looks like you're having a bad day. Take the rest of the day off. We got you. and they're just like, what? I don't have to burn vacation time because I don't have any vacation. No. We got you. Come back tomorrow and let's have a conversation. Obviously, something is going on in your life. It's not work because, look, when you boil it down, what is it? It's issues outside of work, but we can't get away from it just because we come to work. No, what we do is we bring that baggage with us to work, and then we're even more pissed off because now I got to work with Jeremy, and it just compounds. So get ahead of it and then address it tomorrow. Or if they've got a couple days off in between, I don't know, call them and check on them. We can.
It sounds like you're talking about leadership a little bit and caring about your people that you're responsible for. I don't know how I feel about that.
It's simple things. That's all it is. It's treating people the way you want to be treated. That's what it all boils down to. It's very simple, and we make it hard. But again,
I'm too busy.
Yeah.
I can't take the time out to care for you because I have to worry about my own stuff. Yeah. And again, I go back to, if you are willing to take this position, you better be willing to go above and beyond what the expectation was. Because if you just meet the bare minimums, you're doing a shitty job.
Yeah. 100%. Because what the job description is written on paper doesn't mean that's what it entails.
No.
A lot of unwritten stuff in leadership and in those roles, but yeah,
that's why I love doing what I do. I've got the energy for it, and as long as I have the energy to keep doing it, and the people keep allowing me to do it, I'm going to do it. And This is an election year for me, and there's not even a whisper of anyone running against me. So I kind of hope that continues, because in our organization, every election cycle, our operations come to a near complete stop, because employees are like, I don't want to piss anyone off, because I fear for my job, and I don't want to write tickets because I don't want to pull over the wrong person if they're, of that party, or, it's nonsense. So if no one runs against me, then I don't even show up on the ballot. I can continue doing the job as if there are no interruptions. Our people can continue doing the job with no interruptions. And as much as I say to our employees, don't worry about the election, let me worry about that. You just keep doing the job. You keep doing what you do best. That doesn't work, because they get worried about it.
Yeah.
Well, we all fear that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a legitimate fear that everybody has about their job security, and especially when you're talking about your boss as an elected official, and there's not a whole lot of protection for the people underneath.
I'm fortunate to have built the experience that I have, and and have the past that I have, where I am marketable. I don't want to lose my job, though. I love this community. I love doing what I do. But there's a difference between me not getting reelected and being able to go anywhere in the country, because, that's how flexible I am if it come down to something like that, compared to someone who, oh my gosh, has roots, has young kids, who is stable, if you will. They don't need to worry about stuff like that, Yeah. But that's the chaos that comes with working in an elected office.
Yeah. I don't know how to fix that one.
Well, I just keep doing what I do, just keep building the relationships that need to be built, and sustaining the relationships that have been built, being engaged with the community. Too many law enforcement leaders don't do enough in the community. And that's unfortunate, because though the community is who we serve.
Mm-hmm.
And for them to get caught up with, I'm too busy and I'm just locked up in my office with their door cracked, and like, oh my gosh. Consider retirement at that point, because you're literally ineffective. Actually, not even ineffective. You're anti-ineffective. You're causing problems for us, because you're not going out into your community and building trust and a positive, image, and opening those lines of communication. So in turn, what does that do? It ripples across the entire country, because we all wear the shoulder patch. We all have the badge, and people don't look at us. They look at the uniform.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're hurting us, then you're a part of the problem. And I wish more, I'm sounding like I'm bashing on police chiefs and stuff like that. I will say, though, Clay County Police
sounds more like accountability to others in your career.
Yes, definitely accountability.
It's not just law enforcement that you're talking about, though. When it comes to people like that, it's fire departments, EMS services. You can even go up into the military, and you'll see leaders like that, or corporations, where your CEOs or your VPs and presidents or directors, whatever they're called, are closed off, and they make these dumbass fucking decisions.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, everybody's working like, that shit ain't gonna work, man. They're like, oh, it's gonna work. You're gonna get it done. Like, we're telling you, and then it fails. And who do they blame? It's not the good idea fairy that Jeremy loves, but it's the people doing the work. They blaming you. It's like, no, man, that was your decision. You need to own it. I'm not anti-leadership. I'm anti-dumbass.
Yeah.
That's what the world's coming to, is a bunch of people who get to a position, and I'm not naming everybody here, and then they're like, nope, this is where we're doing it. Fuck off. And they close their door and walk away. I hate that shit.
Yeah.
It's like, well, I'm not going to, because then you run into people who are like, I'm just not going to do it.
Exactly. And then it fails. You don't get buy-in. There's no commitment. And, and you're right. Oftentimes it's, you made us fail because you didn't make this happen. There's no introspection on or a reflection on how they came to the conclusion that this was going to be a good idea. Well, what process did you go to test it? Whenever I come up with a radical idea, I always talk with my undersheriff. I talk with my HR manager. I talk with commander. Like, if I think it's going to impact us, I try to get different views. And I say, look, challenge me, right? Question me. And that's where I get a product that I feel comfortable with presenting to everyone because I've already worked through that process. When people don't have or can't explain the process that they came up with, it's just because that's what I said. Oh my God, how did you end up in that position?
Yeah. Well, and it's the good old boy system too. There's a lot of that still in the fire service and law enforcement, and it's an issue.
It is.
Yeah.
And then you have people who just, again, back to not listening.
When you're making those decisions and you're out of touch and you're not thinking about the secondary effects and the tertiary effects, and okay, yes, it's like, okay, we've got this great deal on this new bulletproof vest. Okay, great. Well, does it fit everybody? Is everybody going to be able to wear it? Or is it level 3A, or is it, whatever? Does it have the pouch for your Skittles that the other one had, all the way down to that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And you're not thinking about those problems going forward. Then you get all the vests and you put them on, and half your department can't wear them. And the other half is mad because they don't have their Skittles. And, it's like,
and those little things, some people are like, well, that's so trivial that it has no impact. Well, it does to everyone who wants the Skittle pouches.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And that might be 30% of your employees.
Yeah.
And so, it's extremely important to get buy-in and feedback to be able to identify that process. Don't just tell me that's just because, well,
yeah, it's heading off the problems before they become problems. It's being proactive about that stuff.
it's a chess game, right? You have to strategize secondary, tertiary, and even beyond.
Yeah.
I got a reputation very early on that if you told me no with no explanation when I came to you because of whatever, I just took that and said, you told me no for this way. And then I didn't ask for permission after that. I just went and did it this way. And I would circumvent the no piece of it. And then it works. And then what are you going to do? Be mad at me for accomplishing something that I was able to make work just a different way?
I mean, look at uniforms. That's an example.
Yeah.
Uniforms are universal. Just sitting in this room right here, we have 4 different body types.
Yep.
And those uniforms don't fit us all the same way. And how nice is it to have a uniform that actually fits you? And then you look at, all the women that are in EMS and fire and law enforcement now. That's a completely different body type. And let's be honest, it's not a good look wearing a universal type uniform. No. It's uncomfortable and it inhibits your performance.
Yeah. So when we went through the process of changing our uniforms, when we decided on the pant type, my question was, is that for men and women? Right? Because women cannot wear a universal like a man can. It's cut differently. It's there are things on our bodies that are just placed differently and they need to be formed differently. And we finally got to a point where we found the right pant type, and our female employees were like, thank you. Thank you for allowing me to wear something that actually works with my body type.
It's a big deal, and it's something so small, but it has a resounding effect. Yeah.
And just like vests, right? Oh, the latest and greatest came out. Well, how does that fit our female employees?
Yeah.
It's something so simple, but, well, it's just a vest, it's flat and that's just what we're going to wear. Well, no, body types are different, and sometimes that flat vest doesn't work with some of our employees' body types. So why are we going to make them wear it when the option is, if we go with this vest, that is actually made for your specific body type, whether you're male or female? We only have 23 deputies that are females. Man, it's easy to go to a certain percentage, if not all of them, and say, hey, what do you think about this?
Yeah.
And no one's ever done that. And I'll put an example to that. So 2 years ago, we embarked on the 30 by 30 initiative that IACP came up with. And it's basically by the year 2030, 30% of our ranks personnel will be female. And I mean, we're pretty close. I mean, we're probably better than average. I think we're at like 21%. But before we did this, I actually brought all of my female deputies into the training room and I said, hey, I've got this radical idea, but I don't want to do it until I get feedback from you because I don't want to miss something. I need to know everything. So I pitched it to them and holy crap. Man, if they had freaking rotten lettuce and tomatoes, half of them would have been throwing it at me. I mean, they were just like, that's bullshit. You're treating us differently because we're female. And I was just like, holy crap, I never thought of it like that. So I said, okay, no, here's our intent. This is what I'm trying to do. I'm not trying to say that you're different than us. It's just, and I showed them the initiative and stuff like that and how they broke it down. And some of them were like, okay, I get it. But then some were just like flat out, no, this is a terrible idea. And I said, okay, let me give you an example of why this is important to me. We had 2 female employees who entered motherhood. And in order to pump, okay, we didn't have any place for them to pump, right? So they ended up doing it in a bathroom in our jail facility. And one of them took a picture of what looked like a turd in the sink. And I shared that with them and they were just like, what? And I go, yeah. I was like, so if you're okay with that, I have to tell you, I'm not, because that is extremely disrespectful. I wouldn't want my wife to be in that situation. I wouldn't want my friend's daughter to be in that situation. So, and I don't want that for you. If you decide you want to start a family, I want you to have a room where it's conducive for you to be at work and to take a break and do what you have to do and then go back to work and not have to worry about it. And they were like, that really happened? And I'm like, yes. And they're like, okay, 100% agreement. And we embarked on it. And it's a non-issue. I mean, all I'm saying is, look, if you're a woman and you want to go into law enforcement, don't have these false perceptions of why you can't be in law enforcement. Come on, ask us questions. Let's show you what it can be like for you. Oh, and by the way, we respect you.
Well, we had a local fire department. I have a friend that works on, she's a female, and part of their marketing strategy, they called her in and said, hey, here's the deal. We're gonna, you're a single mother and we're gonna start marketing the fire department to single mothers. We want single mothers to come work here. And this person was like, the hell you do? Like, it's hard. Like, it's hard. Like, with this schedule, with what they do, they are a different schedule than what we're used to. But they're like, can't be away from, single mother doesn't want to be away from their kid for 24 hours. And they're like, well, that's what administration said they want to do, so that's what we're doing.
Oh, man.
Treat people different.
Yeah.
Instead of, being the same.
And I tell you, the females that brought up the, you're going to treat me differently because I am a specific gender. I'm like, I guess I'm not going to say that that's not a valid point. But what I'm saying is, because you are a female, we need to let everyone know that in our organization, in our culture, we respect you. And that's all I'm looking for, is to be able to show respect, and not only for you as a female employee here, but as an organization. We respect everyone that works for us. And, it's about the respect aspect. It's about respect. It's about treating our employees with dignity and appreciating what they're going through in their life. That just because you're going through that doesn't mean that you can't be a valuable member of our organization. Like, we're there for you, right? We're there for you.
Yeah.
Life is hard enough as it is. I don't want you to have to come to work and have to deal with that bullshit too, without any support.
Kind of sounds like she was in the men's bathroom.
Yeah. Well, but you bring up an interesting point, though, is for years, all of history, fire department, military, police, male dominated. So there are issues that we never had to deal with as an organization that now, okay, these things we have to deal with. Yeah. So how do we deal with them?
Exactly. How do we deal with them if we're just in a room full of guys saying, hey, what do you think we should do? And not have one female in there.
Yeah. Well, because I'm in charge and I said so.
Right. I don't want to hear what the answer is. We're just going to go with my great idea.
Yeah.
Oh, but I tell you, man, I really felt attacked in that training room when that all went down. I was just like, wow. But, inside I'm going, wow. I fucked up. Could I have approached this differently? But
you call your wife and like, help.
No, I told my wife what happened. She goes, I would have thrown a tomato at you. I was like, fair enough.
You should have known. We're a different breed anyway, and the women that come into these professions, they're on another level from even that. So, because they have to fit into a male-dominated profession. So,
man. And to that point,
it's harder.
I would say it's a lot harder than what we have to deal with, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's a male-dominated profession. So when a female comes in and they want to be accepted, if they want to learn their job and not be treated differently, they have to do things that, it's not right. But that's just the way it is. But it's also up to the organizational leaders to say, hey, look, we recognize this. And hey, you don't have to do that to be accepted. Just be you. I mean, that's a novel idea, right? We just want you because you are qualified to do this job. You are capable of doing this job.
Will, that's just crazy talk.
I'm a crazy guy.
He might be a little wild too.
Stop it. Oh, well, I think we have taken up a lot of your valuable time today, and I really, really appreciate it. It was great having you back on. You got any closing thoughts for us?
No, man, I just, I'm really excited I was really excited when you said, hey, you want to set up a date and come back? I was like, heck yeah, because I really enjoy this type of setting. I love having candid conversations about things that people would otherwise sweep under the rug or shrug off because it has to be discussed. And I think you guys do a great job, bringing the spotlight to it. So just thank you for having me be a part of it. I really enjoy it. Thanks for everything you guys do.
We appreciate it. So, James?
Yeah.
Closing thoughts?
Oh,
Short.
Don't ramble.
don't pull a Jeremy. Now, brother, you know how much I respect and appreciate you. We've even got together outside of the podcast and just as men, and I look at you as a mentor, and I've always appreciated your leadership style, your mentor style, and just who you are as a human, regardless of whatever you wear on your shirt. So I'm always grateful anytime you want to come in here and share those experiences and lessons with us.
What can I say to that? Right. I'm glad I often think about, and this is a lesson that I learned from the 5 most influential people of my life. And that was my 5 high school teachers that I had who, when we were talking about guilt earlier, I carried so much guilt in my life because I felt like I let them down. And I actually wrote a white paper, not ever knowing that I would ever be able to send it to at least one of them, but I had the opportunity to send it to my former history teacher, who is now was the principal at the time of the high school that I dropped out of. And he responded back to me and he's like, Will, he goes, we do the best that we can, how we can with what we have. He said, but we never know how it impacts someone. So we always keep in mind that if we can just reach one person, we're doing better than what we were before we reached that person. And that's all I can hope for. So whenever I hear stuff like, James, what you just said, I'm just, I'm speechless because I'm like, I'm that guy. I'm like, man, like, thank you. That's an honor. So yeah, I appreciate it.
Chris?
I don't want to follow that shit. You kidding me?
I'm going after you, so I don't have to directly follow
We got to save the worst for last.
Man. No, I mean, again, like everybody else, thanks for coming. It was very interesting. I enjoyed it. Learned a lot. Like we talked about, keep treating your people right. That's what it comes down to. Treat them with respect, and you can move mountains. It's amazing what happens when you treat people the right way.
We can't afford not to.
Yeah.
Fully agree.
Yeah. We are a perishing commodity, pretty much. So, again, thank you. Will, for coming on the show. Really appreciate it. Love it every time you're here. It's always a great conversation. So, everybody, yeah. So, firstly, if you're in Clay County, Missouri, get out and vote.
Or register to vote if you're not.
Register to vote. All that good stuff. So, Sheriff Will Akin, if you are struggling, reach out. There are resources out there. If you know somebody that's struggling, reach out to them. Let them know that you care. Let them know what resources are out there. And if you don't know what resources are around wherever you are, particularly, drop us a line. We know people. We're kind of a big deal. We have many leather-bound books. So, yeah, thanks for stopping by, and we'll see you next time.